The strong currents, rocky bottom, and crowded conditions make the Cape Cod Canal an intimidating place for visiting fishermen. So I met with dedicated striper surfcaster Roy Leyva of Shimano to get his advice for anglers looking to make their first casts into the canal.
Roy, one of the questions we get all the time from people is, what do I need to go fish the Cape Cod Canal? I've heard about it, I've heard there's big fish, it's intimidating. What are the kind of the basics of what somebody needs to start fishing the canal?
Well, ideally you want 2 setups.
Okay.
And the reason why is, one, you want distance, mainly when you're throwing pencils or surface plugs. Actually with anything, because a lot of times the fish are out of reach, they're coming down the middle, they're chasing bait.
Usually they're on the other side.
Yes. It always looks like they're on the other side. Now the guy looking for, can only afford 1 rod and 1 rod only, I would look at something between 10.5 to maybe 12 feet,
okay,
in a medium to medium heavy, fast action. And then you want a reel that one is fast in line per crank. So
pick up line quickly.
Yeah, pick up line. You want that to be really fast, at least 40 inches per crank.
And why is that important on the canal?
Well, you got a lot of rock. You have a extreme fast drop off on the edges. And if you're jigging or you're fighting a fish and you've got to get them up over that ledge real quick, that fast pickup just helps because you can get it right back in without hanging up into those rocks.
What about a leader and clip setup?
I tie straight,
okay,
usually FG knot is what I prefer. I like long leaders. I'm usually fishing anywhere to 50 to 60 pound leader.
Okay.
If
fluorocarbon?
Fluorocarbon, yes, yep. And if bluefish show up, then I'll go to 80 just because it saves some lures.
So you mentioned good to have 2 rods, one being more of a plugging rod and the other one would be a jigging rod. What do you look for in a jigging rod?
Definitely heavy, heavy and fast. On a huge moon, you're looking at tides that can rip as much as 9 knots.
Right.
That's a lot of current.
And on top of how heavy of a jig,
I think at slack tide, you can get away with like 3.5, 4 ounces. But as that tide progresses, you're gonna need 5 or 6 ounces on a normal tide. And I've thrown as much as 8 ounces in here just to be able to bounce the bottom twice before I can't do it anymore.
So what do you look for in a rating on a rod to handle something like that?
That's, 3 to 6 definitely at the very least.
Okay.
And higher depending on if you want to go throw 6 and 8 ounce jigs.
And do you need a more powerful reel or anything to match that heavier rod for jigging?
So we recommend, starting at, Sphero, Saragossa, Twin Power, and even Stella. And I know Stella, a lot of people, you look at that price tag and it's like, whoa, but you ride up and down these bike trails, there's a lot of Stellas.
There's a lot of them.
There's 2 things. The gear, it has to be quality gear. 2, the etiquette that comes with it.
Right. It is something that can be intimidating about fishing the canal as you get down here like we did this morning, and the bite's been good, and so there's guys every 10 yards or so. When you don't want to cross lines, you don't want to make anybody angry. So how do you handle it? What's the kind of canal etiquette? What are the unwritten rules?
That's it. There's a lot of emotion that comes with fishing.
Right.
And it goes both ways. The guy who's catching fish doesn't want to be bothered, and the guy who's not catching fish definitely doesn't want to be bothered. And you get a lot of that, But I've always told people, if you're going to come down, you're going to fish right next to me, at least say hello, And 2, ask questions. Find out what I'm throwing, what I'm doing. I don't have to tell you all the secrets, but to know if I'm jigging or if I'm throwing a popper or if I'm throwing a metal lip swimmer, that all is relevant because we're fishing current. If you're jigging, you got to wait for one guy to cast and then the next guy and the next cast, and you all go in sync. So if somebody's trying to jig in the middle of 5 guys throwing a plug, it just doesn't work because you've got lines that are crossing at 2 different speeds. Most guys down here are friendly.
Yeah.
All the old timers, but a lot of us have put in our time. It's kind of hard when someone comes down and just wants to muscle through, when none of us mind anyone fishing, just as long as everybody plays fair game. And I think that's what it is. Especially now with all the social media and stuff, there's just so many people here on the banks, and there's so many people, everyone has to learn somehow. You start somewhere. No one comes here and knows exactly what to do, but that's a good start. Just be courteous, be friendly, find out what's going on, and that's it. Most guys will be happy to share a tide with you.